Hi everyone. Hi Veronica. Ashish,
There's
would you like to
Ashish.
say a
Ruthie.
few words on Blind King?
So good evening, everybody. Yes, so I
Evening.
was. So it's strange because the first chapter and the first verse is something that I've always read so quickly. I thought it was insignificant, but this time I'm not able to proceed beyond the first and the second because I'm discovering so many new insights. So I keep on writing, rewriting, and then recently I wrote about Sanjay's character, and I was thinking I'll do something similar on Dhritarashtra as well. Um, because not just in the Gita, but even in earlier part of Mahabharata, there is a significance why this king was born. So the father had two sons, and both of them were deformed.
Mm.
The father of the king of the Pandavas was Pandu, and he was weak. I mean, he was physically deformed, and he did not have the strength. And the second son, Dhritarashtra, which was the king in the Bhagavad Gita, he was born blind. So both of these roles have a significance in the story. Uh, for the for the blind king, I think the symbolism is that he's not just physically blind, but he is also blind towards the laws of dharma, because he has many opportunities during the story to correct his sons and to mediate and to moderate their expectations, but he's so attached to them that he cannot see the larger objective of world peace and his duties or his dharma as the ruler. Um, and as the story goes, even when the war is about to start, a few hours back, Bhishma goes to him because he's concerned that the war will ruin the entire dynasty. So he goes to the king and he begs that the king broker or convince Duryodhana to make a deal and to give the Pandavas what was due to them. But Dhritarashtra does not want to do that. And that's when Bhishma goes to Krishna, and then the divine insight is given to Sanjay. So, at different stages in the story, right from early days, there are important decision points that are given to Dhritarashtra as the king, but he chooses to take the easier path, which is against the dharma. And that leads to the escalation of the conflict between the two sets of brothers, ultimately leading to the war. Interestingly, there is another character that is blind, but not by birth, and that is Dhritarashtra's wife. Her name is Gandhari. When she marries Dhritarashtra and she finds that her husband is blind, she blindfolds herself for life. So we see this other character who's the mother, but she has a blindfold, and she accepts. So the symbolism here is that even though she was born with the sight, but because she was being led by a person who did not have the vision, she also chose to blindfold herself. And when an interesting repercussion of this was when Arjuna marries Draupadi, and he comes to his mother to tell her that he has something for her. Without looking, the mother says, "Whatever you have, share amongst the five brothers." And to honor that instruction from the mother, Draupadi was married to all five Pandavas. Thanks.
Right. Quite a story, yes. Well, this is a mythological part, but of course there is some psychological insight into it through the blindness of the king. It sounds very ominous, yes. The king is blind, cannot see things, cannot discern things, cannot see the right path. He always kind of with his closed eyes on things, so to say. And of course, what happened to Draupadi in the court, how they lost, and the beginning of war, it's all due to Dhritarashtra because he is the king. And once the king is blind, all the rest are kind of blinded, Even those who are wise around him, they cannot really go against his will. And this is quite interesting that we are all blinded by the king. If the president of the United States is blind, then everyone else is kind of playing blind, yeah, so to say. Um, to say kind of analogy of the so the king is blind, everybody else playing as if fool around him, so to say, whatever the policy, whatever the central part. Right. We put that beautiful picture of Sanjaya sitting with the Dhritarashtra blind king, and mm, well, there is a mythological explanation. I'm not going into it. Why he was blinded? Because yes, his mother closed her eyes. Yes, didn't want to see the relation with her lover, and so on. We are not going into that. But that is something else. That's not really an explanation. Um, let us look into these chapters. Yes, the chapter number 2. Shall we start with mantra? Yeah. Om Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim yat kripatamaham vande paramananda madhavam. So we finished the first chapter, the Arjuna Vishada Yoga, yes, the anxiety of Arjuna, the rejection and dejection of Arjuna, and moving into the chapter number 2. Let me open the chapter number 2 for us and read through it a little bit, because the whole chapter of Creed of Aryan Fighter is dedicated to the chapter number 2. If you read these 2 chapters on the Battle of Man and the Battle of Life and the Creed of Aryan Fighter, you will find very interesting, subtle explanations of why and how this violence, which we consider to be a violence, is not really a violence. There are very deep insights and very invisible to our, so to say, to our mind. But if we examine them closely, as Sri Aurobindo did in these chapters, we will see that what he says there is interesting, because in the Indian tradition, there are 4 major varnas. There are Brahmanas, there are Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. And when the wars took place, then only Kshatriyas were called upon this beauty. They were specially trained to protect and to fight and to conquer. And that was their duty. Since we are not a final product in this evolution, the fighting instincts and the fighting is the part of life, the application of power, the removal of the, of the adharma is to be done sometimes by power. And there is the whole part of the society which is trained specially to do that. These are royalties, yes. And Sri Aurobindo speaks in terms of gunas, also very interestingly. So there is a tamas guna, which accepts only convenience of life, how to survive, so to say, in the physical body. There is this more vitalistic guna, rajasic guna, which is seeking always to realize one's desires. It reminds me of that what we discussed today, Gitanjali, about the artha, kama, dharma, and moksha. exactly these four types. Yes. So first is artha, to survive within the physical existence. Other is kama, seeking some desires, realization of desires, rajasic. And then he says that there is rajasikotam, sattvic man, man who by the energy seeks realization in the higher dharma. And that is exactly the kshatriya, of dharmic person. And finally, there is a man of high altitudes of sattvic nature who is seeking only the truth. And in that sense, it is Brahmanic of Brahmanas. Yeah? So we can see four different categories of society, for different varnas, for different purusharthas, aims of life, yeah? And for different types of or reactions to this battle. And he says, though Arjuna is Rajasiko Sattvic man, he falls into tamasic vairagya, into tamasic rejection. He becomes he rejects the fight on the ground that he doesn't want to kill or to harm anyone. Though he is not harming anyone who is not of the same nature as he is, the fighter. He is not there to kill servants, to kill Vaishyas, traders, or to destroy Brahmanas. They are all safe. It is clan against clan, army against army, trained people to fight. And that is something we do not see when we speak about the Gita. Yeah, we understand that it is in the setting of the European war, where everybody is thrown to this. Yes, all people, priests and teachers have to fight, and servants, and this would be a massacre. Of course, they are not there. That is not their dharma. And that is maybe partially the answer to what Veronica was raising, that it is not really possible to even imagine such a thing. And I agree with that. I agree. So the Brahmins, the teachers, the seekers, the traders, those who organize our life, and servants, they're all left, and children and women, they're all left to do their duties when the fighters are fighting the wars. Yes, it makes sense. It doesn't look very convincing, but if you look deeper, in more detailed way, you will see that the Second World War was a massacre. Everybody was thrown into it. The society stopped functioning. Yes, there was no more functioning of the society in a normal way. Everything worked on the war and for the war. And here, it is not like that. Society continues to function. Schools are still working. And the war is going on somewhere on Kurukshetra. Just think about it. So, in that view, of course, he says you must fight. Not in any other not in the view of the Second World War. Okay, let us look into this chapter number 2. If you have something to say or to ask or to share, please, you just switch on a microphone and speak.
I'm wondering, Vladimir, we got a lot of requests last time. If you could just spend this first part and chant the verses.
Right.
I don't know. I think we kind of, it's a lot. I think we went up to 37, so you may not want to do all of those, but just to kind of set the tone and open the space, it would be nice.
Let's look into the text a bit and then.
I just have a question. Ooh.
Yes, please.
This is the book we are using. I'm just kind of like,
yeah.
This one is, right?
Yeah, we are using from the website, which is easier to see because it's already in this format, yes. But
yeah, well, yes. We're also using, which I sent a copy out, is the Bhagavad Gita with Sri Aurobindo's commentary, Veronica. So
yeah,
that's
but this is the one with Sri Aurobindo's commentary, right?
Yeah, in a way.
Oh,
yes.
This one has it too? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Okay.
It is the same book. The same what we are making copies from. Okay, let's start with reading a little of these shlokas. I will read them without translation, and then we will go through kind of brief translation, how the second chapter starts. So the second chapter is called Sankhya Yoga. And it's quite interesting how Sri Aurobindo explains the Krishna's attempt. First, he tells him, you fight, it is your dharma. That means that is dharma of Rajasico Sattvic man. You are seeking the higher righteousness. That's why you must fight. This is the battlefield for that. And if it is not possible for you, if it is difficult, you cannot take it because of some, shrinking in your nature, then I can give you a higher vision. And this is the second chapter of that higher vision. He leads him beyond into the Brahmanic knowledge of the spirit, that nobody dies here, and that is the soul evolving, and this is the battle for the soul and not for the body. He will tell him these higher kind of philosophy. So let us read a bit. Om Sanjaya Uvacha Tam Tatha Kripaya Vishtam Ashrupurna Kulekshanam Vishidantam Idam Vakyam Uvacha Madhusudanaha. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. This is for the first time Shri Krishna speaks. Kutastva kashmalam idam vishame samupasthitam anaryajushtam asvargyam akirti karamarjuna klaibyam asmagamav partha naitatvayupapadyate kshudram hridaya daurbalyam tyaktvo tishtha parantapa. Arjuna uvacham. Katham bhishmamaham sankhye dronam cha madhusudana ishubhif pratiyotsyami pujarha varisudana. Now we shift the meter. This was Anushtup. Now we are shifting to Trishtup. Anushtup has 4 stanzas, 4 8-syllabic padas, and Trishtup has 11-syllabic padas. Guru nahatva hi mahanubhavan shreyo bhoktum bhaikshyamapi haloke hatvartha kamanstu guru nihaiva bhunjiya bhogan ruddhira pradigdhan nachai tadvidmah kataranno gariyo yadva jayema yadivano jayeyu yane vahatva najijivishamah te vasthita pramukhe dhartarashtra. Okay, I will translate for you as they go, because it would give you a sense of what is this dialogue about. So Sanjaya said, thus being pervaded with the pity, kripaya vishtam, ashrupurna kulekshanam, with eyes full of tears, vishidantam, to the one who is in distress, this speech, idam vakyam uvacha madhusudana, spoke the Madhusudana or Krishna. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. And Krishna said, the blissful Lord said, Kutastva kashmalamidam vishame samupasthitam. Where from do you got this weakness? Where this weakness comes to you from? Anarya jushtam. It is not worthy of nobleman. Asvargyam, it doesn't lead to the heaven. Akirtikaram, Arjuna, doesn't create any glory. So the dharma of Arjuna is glory, heavenly achievement, support of dharma, and this, what happened to him, does not lead to that. So this is the first argument. Klaibhyam masmagam partha. Klaibhyam masmagam partha. Don't, how to say, allow this weakness. Klaibhyam is something neither fish nor meat, something in between, something undefined, uncertain. Don't allow this weakness to fall upon you. Naitatvayupapadyate, and it should not be born in you. Don't allow it to come from outside, and don't allow it to be born from within, as it were. Kshudram hridaya daurbalyam, this small weakness of the heart. Tyaktva, having left, uttishta parantapa, rise, O conqueror of enemies. Arjuna Uvacha. And Arjuna says, Katham Bhishma Maham Sankhya, how can I fight back with my arrows? Ishubhih Pratiyatsyami Bhishmam. Bhishma was his teacher, guru. Dronam cha Madhusudana, and Drona his guru. How can I fight back with my arrows, Bhishma and Drona? Pujarha Varisudana, those who are worthy of worship here in this world, I should fight back with my arrows. And then there is this argument which Sri Aurobindo explains in this chapter. Guru Nahatva, having not killed one's gurus, Mahanubhavan, great noble ones, Shreyo Bhoktam, it is better to enjoy Bhaikshyam, the alms, that means the begging, by living by begging, apiha loke, in this world here. Hatvartha kamans to Guru Nihaiva, but having killed our gurus who are seeking certain fulfillment, artha kaman, bhunjiya bhogan, I will enjoy the spoils of war, let us say, rudhira pradigdhan, what do you call it, stained by blood. Nachaitat vidmach kataranno gariyo, and we do not know what is better for us. Yadvaja yema yadevono no jayeyu, whether we should win or they should win over us. It's not very clear what is better for this battle. Yan eva hatva najiji vishamach, because whom having killed we would not want to live. Devasthitach, they are standing there, Pramukhe Dhartarashtra, the sons of Dhritarashtra. And then he says, Karpanya dosha upahata svabhavach, my svabhava, my inner nature, is hit by the pity and darkness, or by the arrow of pity, my inner being is hit. Prichami tvam, I ask you, Dharma Samurha Chetach, whose consciousness is bewildered about Dharma. Yat Shreyach, what is the best? Syat should be. Nishchitam brohitanme, tell me that decisively. Shishyasteham shadhimam tvam prapannam, because I am your pupil who found refuge in you. So he appeals to Krishna to give him a solution. He asks him for the best. Tell me what is the best decisively. Nishchitam. No wavering, no philosophy. Please tell me what to do and I will do. And Krishna tells him what to do, but he doesn't do it. He cannot, as Sri Aurobindo says. Krishna says, go and fight, but he can't. He can't accept it. And it's kind of interesting how Sri Aurobindo explains, because that explanation comes from the past. That explanation he already knows, and it is really not satisfying him. And that's how Krishna knows that he is ready for higher knowledge. For him, it's no more enough to know the way he knew it before. He is ready to receive higher initiation. Yeah? So that's how Sri Krishna would start talking to him. Sanjaya Uvacha. Evamuktva Hrishikesham Gudakeshav Parantapa Nayotsya iti Govindam Uktva Tushnim Babhuvaha. Thus having said, Sanjaya said, thus having said to Krishna, Hrishikesham, Gudakeshach, Arjuna, Parantapa, the destroyer of enemies, Nayotsya iti, I shall not fight. Iti Govindam, thus he spoke, having spoken to Govinda, Tushnim Babhuvaha, he became indeed silent. I will not fight, and he became silent. Now it is Sri Krishna's turn to speak. Sri Krishna knows that he is ready to receive higher knowledge. So there's something about crisis here. Yes? If we think that crisis was needed before Sri Krishna could give him the higher knowledge. Tamuvacha Hrishikeshach, and to him Hrishikeshach or Krishna spoke. Prahasan Iva Bharata. And by this small thing, we know that Krishna was waiting for this moment. As if smilingly, happily, he spoke to him. He got into the mood of kind of bringing higher perception of things. Senayor Bhayor Madhye Vishidantam Idam Vachaha. To the one who is distressed in between the two armies, he spoke this word, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Now, this is the first entry of a higher knowledge. The blissful Lord said, but that's the first thing he said, something philosophical. It is in chapter 2, verse 11, for the first time. Ashocyan anvashochastvam prajnavadanshya bhashase gatasun agatasunshya nanushochanti pandita. You are suffering about those you should not suffer. You should suffer, so to say, you are suffering about those you don't need to suffer. Though you speak the truth, you speak the words of wisdom, prajnavadanshya bhashase, but you are suffering ashochach tvam, ashocyan, of about those you don't need to suffer, you suffer. Gatasun agatasuncha, because nanushonchati panditaha, pandits or the wise men do not suffer the living and the dead. I'm using the formula from the Lord of the Rings. Yeah. Because the wise men do not suffer the living and the dead. Gatasun, those whose life is gone, anagatasun, or whose life is not yet gone. Why should you suffer about them? They are born here, they live, they die. Why do you take onto yourself that kind of view that you must suffer that, identify with them? And that is the lowest kind of tamasic vairagya. Yeah? That's what he says. Where you see that conveniences of somebody and yours are disturbed, and some kind of survival is disturbed, and you make it as the major concept of your vision of life. So the wise men do not do this. They do not take onto themselves the right to be identifying with living or dead, mourn either for the living or for the dead. it's a funny situation because we can mourn also the living, right? Not only the dead. The life can be so miserable that you can mourn them for them also. Natvevaham jatunasam, and this is the explanation, because there was no time when I was not. Natvam, no you, neme janadhipaha, neither these great warriors. Nachaivana bhavishyamah, and there will be no time when we will not be. Sarve vayamatav param, because we are all higher than this existence here. Of course, it doesn't sound very convincing to our mind, educated in the Western paradigm, but in his paradigm, it has a much more convincing value. We are higher than the body. We are higher than this life. There was never the time when we were not, and there will be never a time when we will not be. It is not true that at any time I was not, nor thou, nor these kings of man, nor is it true that any of us shall ever cease to be hereafter. So he is pushing him beyond his rajasic, sattvic man of dharma towards moksha, towards the view which is eternal, which he represents here, Krishna. Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumarao yavanam jara tatha dehantara praptich dhirach tatra namohyati. As the soul passes physically through childhood and youth and age, we are constantly changing. There is a constant change. So it passes on to the changing of the body. The self-composed man does not allow himself to be disturbed and blinded by this constant change. As we grew from our childhood to become adults and we became old and we pass beyond, in the same manner, we will continue to change. We will take another body and continue to change. And so why should you be so distressed? People of 100 years back, there is none of them left here. All of them are gone. 500 years back, nobody is left here. We don't even know their names. And 1,000 and 6,000, 10,000 years, where are those people? As if they were never there. So why to be so distressed about this process of becoming? And he gives him an insight into this lowest vairagya, tamasic vairagya. Matras parshastu kaunteya, shitoshna sukha dukhadaha, agama payino nityach tanstitikshasva bharata. He gives him an insight that he is wrong with his sensual reaction to that what he sees. Because the material touches, O son of Kunti, that is Arjuna, giving cold and heat, pleasure and pain, things transient, which come and go, these learn to endure, O Bharata. You have to learn to endure these things of becoming. They are not the whole thing. You may feel comfortable or uncomfortable, but that doesn't change your being. It's only the part of your becoming. They're coming and going. They're never staying. They're constantly changing. So why to assign them so much significance, as if they are everything? Yam hi navyathayantyete purusham purusharshabha samadukha sukham dhiram somritatvaya kalpate. The man whom these do not trouble, no pain or lion-hearted among men, the firm and wise, who is equal in pleasure and suffering, makes himself apt for immortality. Whom these outer things do not disturb, do not influence, do not determine in his behavior, who is equal to pleasure and suffering, or happiness and unhappiness, he is preparing or becoming fit for immortality, for that higher consciousness to which he leads him now. He leads him beyond the dharmic man. He wants him to be ready to see a bigger picture. And now it's a very interesting point here, which I think Charles was mentioning once in our discussions. Na sato vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate sataha, ubhayorapi drishtontach tvanayos tattvadarshibhihi. That which really is, cannot go out of existence. Just as that which is non-existent cannot come into being. The end of this opposition of is and is not has been perceived by the seers of essential truths. That which is not cannot come into existence, and that which is cannot leave this existence. And this truth is not really totally understood by us, but somewhere Sri Aurobindo even says that everything which was once was in this life, was experienced, came into being, has the right to be here forever. And it has to find its proper place, its divine place. But it is misplaced, of course, and that's how all this problem of ignorance is taking place. But to place everything in its right time and place is exactly the work which we are here to do. But everything which was once has the right to be forever. Okay, I will stop here, and because I said already quite enough, and 16 shlokas we read, it's quite a lot. So if you have some thoughts, please share. Thoughts, ideas, insights from the reading of these chapters also. I welcome everybody. You just switch on microphone and speak, because I don't see everyone. I can stop also projecting so that to see everybody's face, it's better.
So I think this is so profound, it takes away your speech, in a way. Yeah, little to be said. My thing here, so Sri Aurobindo talks about coming to the point that matter needs to be divinized, right? Mm-hmm. This is matter. So if everything is okay in a way, and everything is in a, why bother? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, so
yeah.
If everything is okay as it is, and everything that comes into existence has a place in that existence forever, in a way, so why bother about it? Sorry.
Well, we should not bother. I agree. Totally. But it doesn't mean we should not act or live or aspire or seek the higher position of that thing which is here, and finding it proper position in time, we would enjoy the greater harmony, greater relations, more delight. That's the only thing. Yes, absolutely. In this language we speak today, yes. Thank you, Veronica. That's, yes, why to bother? And that's why he says, he is not suffering the living and the dead. You don't need to bother. That which is not cannot be, and that which is cannot stop being. So why do you have to bother about it? So find the right position of everything, follow your heart, follow your aspiration, grow in consciousness, and let others grow also. Give them the opportunity. Yeah, we are training our mind to be wider, to accept different modalities and to see how they all come together.
Well, and I found too that this sense of wideness is interesting, because as I was kind of rethinking and rereading some of this today and just kind of looking at the window here, which you get this very vast view of trees and squirrels and animals. And I was thinking, just to follow up on yours, Veronica, that this wideness, the wider you go in your vision, right, then the more that you can see the insignificance of any one life or any one act, or as Krishna, that as Krishna kind of looks across, all of this will come and go and come and go and come and go. And if we go too narrow and focus too much on the individual event that's happening and not widen our vision, then there is this emotional and physical and mental reaction that Arjuna has. And so it is a widening of the vision. And the other thing I was thinking, there was a lot of exchange on the post about violence and nonviolence, which we so appreciate, Veronica, you kind of leading us off with that. And, if this is very unusual, right, when an avatar comes. So to be basing our views and our beliefs on what's violent and nonviolent today, or acceptable as nonviolence today, is very different, perhaps, than when an avatar comes. And there must be, in this case, some mass destruction for social structures to crumble, and for the ethical and moral perspective to crumble. He was bringing in a whole new consciousness. And he couldn't do that unless there was some destruction that was to happen. And that's not necessarily where we're at today. This is so it's just, I first have this reaction about fighting and killing gurus and parents and stuff, but it was indeed a very unique time and very much needed to bring in this higher consciousness. So I just also wanted to put that out.
By the way, Krishna was looking for many means how to do it right. He would do it differently. Sri Aurobindo says about this, because the material is very rough and tough. So the application of that consciousness to it would be more painful, because it is resisting. It's not flexible enough. But if it would be flexible enough, it could be avoided. Mother speaks about the changes in the future. We are expecting great turmoils, because if we resist, if our consciousness would not permit these changes to come, it would not aspire to them, we would have quite a disastrous future, with many events which we would like to avoid today. So it's up to us. Yes, how material is material flexible enough? If not, there will be this kind of breakdown in some way, because it refuses to collaborate with the spirit, and the spirit leads forward the evolution of consciousness. It doesn't want to stay in the same place forever. It has its own vision, its own plan, and it is within us. It's not something from without. It is within us. It's a very complex kind of question, what is happening to all of us here now. We are in this period of Kurukshetra, actually. We are in the time of a great shift.
I think this, what you speak about is so true. This, and the power of our aspiration. I remember Mother talking about when the Chinese were amassing on the northeastern border of India, threatening to come in. And one of her disciples, Sujata, said, shouldn't we all aspire that, shouldn't India aspire that to the Lord, to the divine, that the outcome is good for India? And Mother said that would be so powerful. We really need people to do that. So part of our sadhana here is to aspire for the truth, for the new consciousness to work through us and in the world. And it's here anyway. I mean, Mother and Sri Aurobindo brought it down, this new consciousness into matter. So we have to cooperate. I think that's the message.
Absolutely. And to aspire is one, and to receive grace, receive receptivity, to be open to receive the answer, to receive the guidance, which is even more difficult. One thing to want it, and other is to receive it and to apply it, to follow it, to embody it. Yeah.
Vladimir, sorry.
Yes.
Oh, okay, thanks. So on the discussion on
You're switching off.
Sorry, am I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Am I audible? Okay.
Yeah.
So on the discussion on non-violence, so that's a concept which I'm finding it very hard to understand. To me, I think it's the ultimate form of detachment, because we are violent when we react, when we want to give it our best to defend or to raise our voice or to react against a situation. And I have always attempted to read Mahatma Gandhi's work, but I've never been able to appreciate it fully, because I think it leads a level of understanding and engagement with nonviolence which I never had. So I was intrigued by this piece when during an exchange, one of the teachers is asked that how can you respect the need for violence in some situation if you're always saying it's all about non-violence. And the person replied that, what would you think about a person who's cutting open a man from throat to chest and putting his hand inside? And the person who asked the question said, I'll be absolutely disgusted. I would hate such a man. That man should never exist. And then the teacher replied, what if he was doing an open heart surgery to save a man's life? Would that change your perspective? So I think the thing about widening our vision, the thing about putting a perspective, the thing about, if the violence is really, so if that agony is required to end something else, which is far more disastrous. So if the body is not cut open, the man's life would end. So the violence is justified. And I'm trying to see the Mahabharata in that context. So maybe in extreme cases, but I don't know how that judgment can come, because we often see these instances of violence and people actually use the example of Bhagavad Gita to wrongly justify violence at times. So it's a difficult one for me. I'm still trying to understand.
Right. It's interesting how Sri Aurobindo says here at the end of the creed of the Aryan fighter, which can explain what you are trying to say in a very interesting way, that yes, destroy when by destruction the world must advance. Yeah, if the world must advance by the destruction is to be done. But hate not that which thou destroyest, neither grieve for all those who perish. Don't have this kind of hate. Don't do it with hate and pain and regret and all that, because that means that you are not really doing it totally right. You don't have the higher motivation. You don't have the higher vision, which there are certain things which must be done. For example, when Hitler was there, they wanted to kill him, and Hitler had to be killed. And Sri Aurobindo applied a lot of energy to kill Hitler, yeah, because he created a disaster for the whole world. And he couldn't be killed. He was protected by the Asura, as Sri Aurobindo says. Asura took kind of care of him, would not permit anybody to come close to him with harm. So, but it had to be done. And that is violence, yes. Certain violence is needed. But you see, that wasn't done. And we paid a higher price for non-violence in a way. So it's violence is something which is done for the sake of bringing us down. And Sri Aurobindo says if Hitler would win, that would be disastrous for the whole world. We will be thrown back 300-500 years back in our evolution. We would be stuck. It would be we would regress, instead of progress. So that is violence. Regression is violence. If it is progressing, well, one has to see. Because there are certain things which cannot be done anyhow. So,
yeah. Even in Ramayana, I think Rama wages a war against Ravana and ends up killing him. So I think that's a symbolic reference throughout the Indian scriptures, where if asuras or the adharma rises to an extent where it really has to be cut off, then a war is waged.
Right. And you remember how in Ramayana he did this beautifully, Rama, against Ravana. He had no hate. Though Ravana stole his Sita, he's the most beloved, the most precious being. So when they were fighting the whole day, Ravana was so strong. He could destroy all the gods, Rakshasas, Asuras. He was stronger than all of them. Of course, he didn't care about human beings, and Vishnu had to be embodied in the human being. And they fought the whole day till the evening. And in the evening, when Rama destroyed his chariot, his armies, he is lying down, ready to die, Ravana. And Rama stands with arrow upon him. And then he says, very smilingly, "It is too late already. Let us meet tomorrow." And leaves. And Ravana was destroyed. The whole night he couldn't sleep. He was afraid. What? How? He didn't shoot the last shot. He left him to sleep over till the next day. This is the divine action. And the next day when they met in the morning, there was only one shot. And Ravana was finished. There was no more mercy, no more fighting. Just like a lightning, and Ravana is dead. In the morning. That is the mercy of the divine. Destroying all the arrogance, all that what Ravana built around, all that strength and mighty, ignorance, claiming knowledge. He destroyed over that particular night, giving him one night to think of. It's beautiful. There's much to think of.
Sorry for prolonging, but would it be right to say that the violence is only the choice of the divine, and for us it is detachment and non-violence as beings on earth?
Everybody has a dharma certain dharma to fulfill. If I am a seeker of equanimity, equality, what violence would I actually I'm not a soldier to fight in war. Yes, I'm to protect, to nourish, to help others, to educate. So I will do my part. Yes, there are beings whose dharma is to fight, to protect, to that these are the soldiers, and they do this. And they follow their dharma. And that dharma is needed, as Mahakali is needed to remove all the obstacles in this world. Yeah? All the asuras which are rising and claiming, all these Ravanas who are claiming the world. Who will remove them? Teacher will not remove them. Vaishya would not remove the trader, and servant also would not do it. There must be some hero, some strong man who is ready to give his life for it. It's a normal thing. It's the truth of our living today on this planet. So there's nothing wrong about it. And it is also noble and beautiful. Somebody gives his life to save others, to protect others. Is it not noble? It's should be highly appreciated.
But I think too, what's important, what Sri Aurobindo says here is that, it must be coming from within. It must be indeed the swabhava of that warrior. Otherwise, it gets wrapped in egoism and hatred and anger, and there's no truth in that. So as long as it's truly the swabhava, then that truth of that action will accomplish the good in the world and be able to overcome any of the evil forces. But unfortunately, most people are not connected with their swabhava or their innermost truth. And so we have a lot of violence happening that doesn't need to happen, but in the name of truth and in the name of justice. So it's a tricky business. It's a really tricky business. And as you and I were saying, Vladimir, because Veronica, your email really triggered a lot of discussion between Vladimir and I, between violence and not. And then Teresa asking last time, well, how do you know? And, the conclusion we came to is if you really don't know, if you're not in touch truly with that inner being, which most of us, at least most of the time, is not, then it should be nonviolence. You can't, you have no choice but to follow the nonviolent path. It's only if you're truly in touch and this is what you're here to do in terms of your swabhava, that violence is acceptable. So
I also want to say something just to affirm what you're saying. I couldn't agree more. I mean, it takes great wisdom to know that you have to kill in order to evolve, for evolution to happen. You have to be really connected. But I just want to say, Gandhi himself said it is better to be violent than to be a coward.
Yeah.
He actually did say that, which is okay. It was not all, nonviolent. Nonviolence for him was a principle like truth, like God, like in that sense. And it's not an ism or an idealistic thing. It's a principle. That's why it's not the opposite of violence. It's kind of like in his understanding, right? But I love this discussion because it's, as you said, Vladimir, there were 20 attempts to murder Hitler. 20. I mean, this is, there's a wonderful video on all these SSs who wanted to kill him, and they 20 times, and they failed, So there are other forces at play here, but eventually, like he was destroyed, which was a good thing for humanity, right? But there are other forces that we can't. Yeah, but I totally agree. Yeah, thank you for that, Radha and Vladimir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing and bringing this discussion, because this is the most difficult part in the Gita. This entry, this really, it's still a difficult part to understand. Yes, Siegfried.
Yep. Hello.
Yeah, hi.
Do you hear me?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, okay. Good night, everyone. I want to say when we are talking about Hitler or all of these things, in posteriori, we say afterwards, it's very easy to say what is the truth or what is the untruth, right? But I think that in the events we are living right now, globally, affect us. What is the truth or what is the untruth is the root of if the violence or non-violence are the proper action, right? I think there is a pattern when Ashish was explaining the history of the trust. I don't remember the name.
Dhritarashtra.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel that it was a pattern because he was he had the opportunity many times to change his decision, right? But he's keeping the same straight on, right? I think it was a pattern, and I can see the pattern nowadays in the actually. You know, all the various in our history, it was cyclic epidemics or cyclic. The nature, the climate, everything is cyclic. What do you? I don't know if I telling you properly, but everything is like a vibration, up and down, pull and push. This is how we are living our relation with the actions and everything, right? But when you feel something is straight on pushing always, for me, is in another way, this is the untruth. This is untruth. You know, Hitler, the attitude of Hitler, pushing always in the same direction. This is not possible, right? And if you want to use the psychic being powers to decide what is correct and what is not correct, like Dr. Alok Pandey explained in the last webinar, it's very easy to feel it, what is truth or what is untruth. And if you feel this untruth, then your action is not violence. It's not a violence action. You have to fight because you have to break this process of untruth, and you have to act with your skills. Sometimes you can act only by words or only by silence, but you can decide. For example,
Pushing one way, only one particular pattern, only one truth makes every other truth kind of obsolete or kind of not welcome, and that creates all the falsehood. Yeah. Because the truth is much more harmonious and much more inclusive and vaster, and has many components which have to be allowed to be, to live, to grow. Great. Thank you very much for your comments. If somebody else wants to say something, please. Otherwise, we will close for today.
I also wanted to say that the
Yes.
process of destruction is kind of imbued in our everyday life, like how our cells get destroyed every day for us to live healthily. If they don't get destroyed, then we get cancer. Then same process with the seasons, like in the winter all the leaves fall so that new leaves can come up in the summer. So if we see the process of destruction as violence, it looks as violence, but sometimes behind it is the transforming power. So it's very necessary to align with the highest connection within us for an action, for action to be made possible. And also, I think with the death and the family, we kind of suffer because not so much for the person, but for our own selves, what we would miss,
Right.
how we would miss the connection and how we would miss it. So it's more of a thing turned to oneself. And there is nothing wrong in it, but it's an kind of an egoistic movement, because there the surrender is kind of not total, because it doesn't leave the entire decision to the higher universe. Because how do we not know that the death of that person or the destruction of that event is not good for our highest path? So everything is kind of so much interlinked, and circumstances that happen in our lives or the things that affect us kind of takes us on the path of growth.
Mm. Yeah, thank
I'll
you.
do two thumbs up to that, Dolan.
Yeah,
That
I
was
really
very well said.
appreciate that. Yeah, those are beautiful insights. Thank you.
Very nice.
So, shall we close for today? Yeah. Or somebody else wants to say something at the end? Great. Let me then close with the mantra. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Namaste.
Beyond.